Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I am your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 96 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you all personal finance topics that I think could really help you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we're going to begin this week talking about college and talking about how to pay for college and talking about how, specifically in today's episode, student loans are not necessary to pay for college. We're really going to dig into that fact. I know we've talked about student loans before and we've talked about all these different types of debt, but I really want to nail down on why they are not necessary for you or for anyone else to go and get a college degree. And there are many other avenues that you can take, and we will dig into those in this episode. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback down in the comments as we go along, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Any questions or comments that you may have, just leave them down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then make sure that you subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. That'd be much appreciated. And then follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan. And I provide you a lot of good supplementary materials on social media that I think will help all of you in your day-to-day walk in your personal financial life that will go right along with the things that I talk about day by day in my long form episodes like this one. And so just check that out. I think you'd really enjoy it. And then if you want to work one-on-one with me, if you want somebody to help maintain accountability in your personal financial life, somebody who can walk through a plan and help create a plan specifically for you, I'm your guy. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com, click on the Work with Dylan tab, and pick the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can start pushing forward in your long-term financial journey. Now, some of you may not know this, but some of you do. I am a PhD student in finance, and as such, I teach college-level finance courses. And so I've been doing that all semester, and the semester has wound down and ended this past week. And so, as the semester ended, I was just thinking about, the semester that's coming ahead, and, this past semester, and how students are paying for their school, and how student loans can be a big burden for a lot of people, and just worrying about how to pay for school can be a big burden for a lot of individuals. So I want to help you walk through that this week, and today specifically I want to spend it talking about, before we get to a new semester and these types of decisions are locked in, I want to explain to you why student loans are not necessary for you to get your college degree. Now, before we get too far in, let me go ahead and give you guys some just basic statistics on student loans that show you how much of an issue they actually are. So there was a study done by Ramsey Solutions, and within that study, they found several different types of people, some that you want to be and some that you don't. And here are just a few anecdotes from that study, and some clear anecdotes as to why student loans can be debilitating. So there were individuals with, like $50,000 in student loans with no degree to show for it. Or there was an individual with $62,000 in student debt, and they only made $19,000 a year. Others had $121,000 for a master's degree just to work as an administrator in a school. And then $175,000 is the amount that one individual had in private student loans and federal student loans put together. And that's just a crazy amount. But then somebody else actually had over $600,000 in student loan debt. None of these situations are situations you want to be caught in. And so we have to figure out what the alternatives are. We have to figure out, well, if we don't want to do this student loan thing, then what do we want to do? The crazy thing is that student loans are so common, and yet people don't know a whole lot about the process, and they don't know a whole lot about student loans when they are taking them out. Most individuals who are taking them out are 18-year-old kids who just signed the bottom line for tens of thousands of dollars that they're going to borrow at whatever interest rate from the federal government or from some private lender of this student loan debt. And so they get all of this debt, and they really don't pay much attention to it because they don't know a whole lot about what the ramifications are. But then years pass, they either leave school with no degree, like I said that one individual did, or they continue on and finish school, and then they have a real job. And then shortly after having that real job for a while, then the payments must begin. And when those payments begin, you start to see the dark side, the scary side, the ugly side of student loans. That ugly side is multifaceted, and that's because when you have student loan debt, this type of debt is not an amortized loan, meaning it does not have a set payoff date. So like when you have a car loan or a home loan, it's for a certain number of years. So you're making monthly payments for a certain number of years. But with a student loan, your payment may be income based. It may be based on maybe you picked a 10-year repayment period where it would be having a set payoff date. But a lot of people just make their minimum payments based on whatever those minimum payments are based on, and they can pay on student loans for many, many, many years. There are people in their 50s and 60s that have student loans still sticking around from when they were in school because they've just paid the minimum payments, or they've deferred several times, or put their loans in forbearance, or whatever it may have been, and they still owe this money. So it's very, very dangerous in the fact that you do not have a set amount of time that you're going to be paying on these. You could be paying on them for the rest of your life. Then not to mention tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. The payment on that is going to be enough to impact your personal finances in a material way. Therefore, it causes a lot of individuals to put off things that they would otherwise do in life, like buying a house, or like starting a family, getting married, having kids, things like that. They're putting off their lives because they've taken out these student loans, and it holds them back for so long. And so all of this to say, student loans are extremely dangerous. So we want to know, how do we go about avoiding them? Why are they not necessary? Well, let's just start here. The first reason that they are not necessary is that you don't have to borrow money. You can get money in other ways. You can get your hands on money to pay for school in other ways. You may not like it, but there are definitely other ways to go about it, because it is undeniable that student loans are a cop-out. Student loans are a way that you can just, you can borrow money from the federal government and not have to do anything for that money. And that is a cop-out, because there are people who do the right things, and they actually either earn scholarships, or they get grants that they have applied for and that they qualify for, or they have to keep some GPA requirement, or some have to have some ACT score to get a scholarship or something like that. But anybody can go and get student loans. It's not a difficult thing to do. And there's other people who are going to work to pay off their school as they go. And if you're taking out student loans to pay for your school, then what's the point in working? We've got this taken care of. And it's just that mindset. That mindset is very, very dangerous for young people. It's very, very dangerous for those of you who are in school, who are going to begin school this next year. I know that a lot of you are heading in that direction come 2021. And so I really want to implore you that student loans are not the way to go. So let's talk about why that is. So we know student loans are normal, and we know that most people have them laying around. I had them laying around. When I left my undergrad, I've told you guys about this before. I had student loan debt. Me and my wife subsequently paid that off within a few years, and it was completely gone. And we're in that debt-free place, which is an amazing place to be. It's where I want all of you guys to be. But I don't want you to make the mistake in the first place. I want you to cut it off at the source. Don't take out any or any more student loans and take some of these suggestions that I have for you today as to how you can get through a degree without them. So some people are lucky enough, or are blessed enough to have had parents that saved up for their school, or were able to cash flow their school as they went along, and they were just able to pay cash for their degree. And that is fantastic. And if your parents did that for you, then hopefully you take advantage of that blessing. You take advantage of that opportunity and get that degree and make your parents proud in that place. But there are actually anecdotal stories of individuals who their parents have enough money to pay for their school, but they'll take out student loans in order to do things that they should not be doing with that money. Student loans should go towards paying for school, not towards paying for, things that you want to do in your own life. And so they'll just take out student loans just to have money in the bank instead of actually going and working for something, which is, crazy in the first place. But then it is also not what we want to be doing. We don't want to be going into debt when somebody's already got this thing covered. So if you have the opportunity to have your degree paid for by your parents, then really make them proud, do it, and don't go into any unnecessary debt just because you feel like you are entitled to that money or need that money for some of your frivolous stuff that I know you're going to do on a college campus. But apart from that, let's kind of begin in this place where we know that every year, you go and you fill out your FAFSA applications, and that's where most people actually get the offer of these student loans from the federal government. It's after they fill out that application. But that application also covers grants of many kinds, and so especially the Pell grants, right? And especially if you're in a place where you are maybe your parents are lower income, or you may be a minority or have some type of reason that the federal government would give you free money in the way of a grant, then make sure that you are applying for aid in that way. Do not take the student loans that they offer, because they will offer them, but do not take those. Just see if they will get you any grants. See if they have any grants that you qualify for. And if they do, then for sure take advantage of those, because you do not have to pay those back. And one of the biggest reasons that student loans are not necessary, that we don't talk about enough, because you want your child to go to the school of their dreams, or people go on these campus tours and it's a pretty campus, and I love this town and I love this place, and we forget that the reason that we're here is to get education. We're here to get an education. We are not here for the trees and the buildings and the nice tour guide that walked you around, and then you look and you're paying $80,000 a year for this school. It's just crazy talk. So the biggest thing that can keep student loans out of your life and prove that they are not necessary is to pick an affordable school. Pick a school that you can afford, or that you can likely cash flow in some way, or get scholarships to go to. I've seen people in my life several times pass up on scholarships to go to certain schools in order to go to another school where they're getting no scholarships just because they like that school. And I'm like, that is the most illogical thing that you could possibly do, but people will do it. Do not fall into that. Go to an affordable school, especially a school that will, maybe give you scholarships that other schools won't. State schools, maybe even start at a community college. And there's such a stigma around starting at a community college. And I know when I came out of high school, there was that stigma as well. You didn't want to go to the local community college. You wanted to, go to a 4-year school, and you didn't care what you had to do to get there. But at the end of the day, if you go to a 2-year school, and a lot of 2-year schools, it's very easy to get all of that paid for. And even if you don't get it all paid for, it's much more affordable than going to a 4-year university. If you can go get those 2 years knocked out and then go to a 4-year, you saved yourself some money, and you saved yourself a little bit of time to where maybe you could save up to go to that affordable 4-year school. And nobody's going to care that you went to the 2-year school, because guess what? On your resumes, it's just going to say you're going to be a graduate of whatever 4-year university you went to. It's not going to say anything about the 2-year school that you went to, because that is not relevant to most jobs that would require a bachelor's degree or things like that. So that is not an issue for employers. So why do we treat it like an issue? We shouldn't treat that like an issue when that's a way that student loans can be out of our lives, that student loans can be off the table and not an option. But for some reason, there's this entitlement of we should all go to 4-year schools. That just is not the case, shouldn't be the case. But unfortunately, that's the way that most people are choosing to live. And I mentioned scholarships and grants a little while ago. Listen, if you are a high school junior or senior and you're looking forward to college, and you don't know how your college is going to be paid for, then a way that you can make sure that you don't go the student loan route is to apply for as many scholarships and grants as possible. Because there are so many out there. There's so much free money to be had. There's so many specific scholarships that are for specific types of people, or, just have very, strict rules as to, who is going to receive that type of scholarship. Whether you're going to major in something, or whether you're of a certain ethnicity, or have, certain scores, or maybe you just have to write essays. Because a lot of these scholarships that you can apply for, they require essays for you to write the essays. Try to apply to as many as possible, and lo and behold, you will likely get some free money that you can take to school with you. And the same thing goes with grants, and most grants, like I said earlier, are for low income situations, or certain minority groups get grants more often. And if that is the case, then take advantage of all the free money you can get. Don't be ashamed of the free money you can get. Get it, take it, go to school, and make it the debt-free route. And now I want to get to the biggest thing that is keeping individuals from having a debt-free existence when they leave their universities. And that is, they're not working. They don't work. They don't make money. They don't do anything to make money to pay for school themselves. Again, it's the free riding problem. It's that cop-out of you can just get student loans and not work for them. Well, you're going to have to pay them back with interest. It's much better to just pay it all up front and actually work for it on the front end. And so, it's not that difficult at an affordable school to work your way through a degree. And if it is, if you're starting at zero, then it's okay to take a year or two and just work. Save that money up. If that's what you really want to do, save that money up, then go to the 4-year, continue to work, cash flow that 4-year school, or go to the community college and then to the 4-year and cash flow both. And I'm just saying there's no shame in that. And let me also tell you this, because this is the biggest argument against that. The biggest argument is, well, how do you have time to work and go to school? Well, that's typically said by people who spend a lot of their off time partying and, spending their time with their friends doing all types of college shenanigans. And there's nothing wrong with, having friends and doing things with your friends. But what are we here for? Are we here to get an education? Are we here to actually do this thing? Or are we here to make friends? And for some people, they may say, well, I'm here to make friends. Well, then you don't need to be taking out debt to make friends, right? You don't need to borrow money to make friends. That doesn't make any sense either. But just do what you can. Work as much as you can while you're at school. An employer is not going to care that much. Most employers are not going to care that much about the difference between a 3.0 and a 3.5, or a 2.7 and a 3.0. Get the degree. People care about you getting the education and getting the directional training that you need to have to do the job that they are going to require of you. And as long as you have that, as long as you have gotten those skills and gotten that education, then you will be just fine. Don't be afraid of spending a little more time working and trying to make money so you can cash flow these things. Because I've seen many people do it, and they are better off for it because they are more grateful for what they've done. I did it with a master's degree. I paid for the master's degree. I worked while I was getting the master's degree and paid it in cash. And I was more thankful for the fact that I had the master's degree because I paid for it out of my own pocket. It's a better feeling. You end up taking more ownership of the degree. It's far easier when you have student loans to just say, I'll just, put that class off, or I'll drop that class or drop this class or whatever. But when you're paying for stuff on your own, you're like, okay, I got to take care of this because if I don't, then, that's coming out of my pocket. So there's more incentive for you to do well in that particular place. Even though it's a little more difficult because you are working, it is far more worth it, and you're going to be far more motivated to make it work out. And one more thing you can do to avoid the student loan debacle is live off campus, right? A lot of people want to live on the campus and live the college life and do the college thing. A lot of times you can live off campus for cheaper than you can live on campus. Now, some places this is not true, but it's true in many, many places. You can live off campus and live cheaper and live with a little less restriction. Or if you live close to the university, if your parents live close to the university, just see if you guys can figure it out for 4 more years or 2 more years or however long you're going to be going there. Because if you can go rent free for those times and still be working and still be going through school, then the likelihood of you going through without student loans is far, far higher. So take advantage of every opportunity that you can to not borrow money, because you'll be much more grateful that you didn't borrow money on the back end than you will be that you went to some higher prestige school, or to a school that was very had a pretty campus and you had a lot of friends at that school and you joined a fraternity or sorority, or that you went to because it was the school of your dreams, or whatever it may be. All of those things end up subsiding when you graduate. That stuff no longer matters. What matters is, okay, I'm making X amount of dollars and I have to pay X amount of dollars a month for this student loan. Was the student loan worth it? I'll just tell you, it is not. And it doesn't matter to employers where you go to school or what your GPA is as much as you think it does. Do good in school. Go to good schools if you can afford them. But if you cannot, there's very, very little benefit, other than a few of the really big names that we hear all the time. So if I can boil all this down, student loans are not necessary because there are so many other ways that we can go about getting school paid for. You may not want to go those ways. Well, then you may not like what I have to say on this channel, and that's perfectly okay. You do you. Whatever your life mantra is, you can live by that, or whatever your financial plan is, you live by that. But you're watching my channel, so I'm going to tell you what I think about it. And I just don't think that there is a benefit to taking out student loans. I don't think it's worth it. And I think we can make them unnecessary if we choose the road less traveled. The thing is, we all want to be normal. We all want to take this normal route where we graduate high school and then we immediately go to a 4-year school of our dreams and take out student loans to go, and then we get out, and it's not the way that everybody needs to go. It's not the way that most people need to go. Most people need to take some type of nuanced route. They need to do something that's a little different. They need to, do different things. It's crazy to me because the statistics say that the average household in America has a $60,000 household income. So you would assume that most households cannot send, their kids to school debt-free just by paying for it. And so a lot of the burden comes on the kids. And, some of those households can, and that's fantastic for them because they've done the right things, saved for their kids' college, invested for their kids' college. But that is just not the case for most individuals. And that's why there are over 40 million Americans that owe student loan debt back to the federal government. And it's just a problem. It's a huge problem, and they are not necessary. If you would stop taking them out, if you would stop this debacle, then these 4-year universities that you go, oh, well, they're so expensive. How could I ever pay? How could I ever pay for this, school that is just so expensive? Well, if student loans weren't around, then the schools wouldn't be so expensive. The schools are so expensive because the student loans are available. And they know that students can just borrow up to their eyelids. And when students can do that, schools can raise the price because there's nothing there that is deterring them from doing so. And so in that way, they make student loans a more obvious option for students, but they are still not necessary because there are plenty of affordable schools, plenty of schools that you could go to and get the same education. I went to a small 4-year university. I went to a smaller school that was more affordable. It was better priced. And that being the case, I could have gone through debt-free, no problem. Did I do so? No. Made some bad decisions, as we all do, but we end up getting over those decisions because we get on a plan. We make the decision to get out of this place. But I'm trying to help you avoid this place. Student loans are not necessary. They are only necessary because you don't want to sacrifice. You don't want to sacrifice something today in order to have a better tomorrow. You don't want to sacrifice, spending time with friends in order to be debt-free later on. You don't want to, sacrifice not going to Penn State, right? And instead going to some smaller school within the state of Pennsylvania, if you were from Pennsylvania, just a quick shout out. Don't know why I chose that state, but that's just the case. But you see what I'm saying is like, instead of going to that school, instead of sacrificing going to that school and being debt free later, you're choosing to go to that school and be in debt. And that doesn't make any sense. Or maybe you do have the qualifications to get a bunch of scholarships or a bunch of grants, but you just don't apply because maybe you're lazy. You don't feel like it's going to be worth it. And you're like, I don't want to put all that work in to doing that. Well, again, you are not sacrificing today in order to get what's good tomorrow. You're sitting there and you're going, okay, well, I'm not going to sacrifice today and I'll just take out student loans. I'm telling you guys, student loans are not necessary for you to pay for school. They are not necessary for you to go get a 4-year degree that is going to be useful to you. I implore you, do not take them out. I implore you, if you have been taking them out, to stop. Make the choice to sacrifice today. I promise you, everything that is good that you will get in your life is because you sacrifice something at some point to get to that place. You're not going to get anything from just sitting back and taking free money. You're not just going to, or free money. You're going to have to pay that money back. But you're not just going to, get anything from, sitting back and thinking that somebody owes something to you or that, somebody else will take care of it. I don't need to worry about it. No, take the bull by the horns. Go after it. Do everything you can to put yourself in the best position when you do get out of university, when you do get out of college, that you will be able to be a valuable member of the workforce that doesn't have debt and that can do things like buy a house, can get married, can start a family with your spouse, and not be so cash strapped that they feel like they can't do any of those things. Student loans are a debacle in America, and the problem is they are just not necessary. So let's make them irrelevant, because guess what? We can make the choices to do so. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you could, go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below if you haven't done so already. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then make sure that you subscribe there and leave me a review. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan. That'd be a really good follow for all of you who like my daily content that I'm putting out in the form of these episodes. And then if you want somebody to help you walk through your financial life and create a financial plan that is tailored specifically to you and your life, then I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com, click on the Work with Dylan tab, and pick the financial coaching session type that would work best for you. And we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals. So tune in tomorrow as I continue talking on the idea of paying for college and, getting a college degree and things like that. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about why you are your best investment. And we'll dig a little more into that topic in tomorrow's episode. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.